This is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you from Jenin in occupied Palestine on March 13, 2024. Yesterday, I visited the Jenin refugee camp, which lies some kilometers from where I'm currently situated. I was accompanied by Palestinian Canadian artist Rihab Nazal, who currently lives in another part of the West Bank. And she and I spoke to a number of the camp's residents and surveyed extensive destruction and damage to civilian infrastructure in the camp. I've published some reports already about what we saw and heard yesterday, and I have others to come. Our plan for today was to travel to another refugee camp, which is a further distance away from where we're currently situated, called the Tulkam refugee camp, and we were planning on spending the entire day there. We did ultimately get to Tulkam, but we decided to spend the morning back at the Jenin refugee camp because shortly after we woke up this morning, we learned that 6 men, Palestinian men, had been struck by Israeli bullets at the Jenin Governmental Hospital, which is on the edge of the Jenin refugee camp. So we spent the morning over at the hospital gathering whatever information we could about the circumstances surrounding the shooting of these men and the killing of 2 of them. And upon my arrival at the hospital, the first thing that I noticed was right across the street from the hospital, there was a large structure which looked very much like a military base. It had watchtowers, sandbags, surrounded by high walls, barbed wire, and I quickly learned that that was in fact not a military base, but the police headquarters in the area for the Palestinian Authority. So it's immediately across the street from the hospital where the shooting occurred. Once inside the hospital, we had an opportunity, fortunately, to speak to the director of the hospital, who by that point in time had, his staff at least, and perhaps him directly, had spoken with a number of the witnesses to these shootings. And also he had reviewed videotapes taken at the time of the shooting by the security cameras, one of which was situated on the exterior wall at the entrance to the emergency ward, and another one situated on the interior wall at the entrance to the emergency ward. And according to him, what the evidence showed, both the testimonies from the witnesses and the videotapes, was that none of the individuals who ran into the hospital and were struck by bullets either on the outside as they were coming in or once they immediately upon their entrance into the emergency ward, none of them was armed, and they were simply entering the emergency ward to evade bullets being fired by Israeli snipers in the vicinity. And it has in fact been confirmed that there was an operation by the Israeli military involving a number of soldiers at this particular time. It was about 3 a.m. last night. We then had an opportunity to review the videotapes. The director of the hospital had them on his iPhone, and we watched them a couple of times. And what they very clearly showed was that the information he had relayed to us was accurate. Now, you're going to see our interview in a moment of the director of the hospital. Before you do, the first clip you're going to see is a clip that was taken of this very large police headquarters right across the street from the hospital, which, as I think you'll probably agree, looks a lot more like a military base than the local police headquarters. And then you'll see the interview with the director of the hospital. And finally, we will report from the entrance to the emergency ward, recounting what we had just seen in as much detail as I could on the iPhone of the director of the hospital. As I've indicated in the clips that are to follow, we've requested copies of the tapes, but as the director explained, he doesn't have the authority to turn the security videotapes over to us without the consent of the Ministry of Health of the Palestinian Authority. And hopefully we will obtain copies of those tapes, and if we do, we will certainly publish them in their entirety. So here's our report from the Jenin Governmental Hospital this morning. So, sir, could you please introduce yourself?
My name is Wissam Bakr. I am a pediatrician and I'm the general director of the hospital.
And which hospital are we at today?
You are in the Jenin Governmental Hospital.
And we're on the edge of the Jenin refugee camp, is that correct?
Yes, that's right. Our hospital is so close to the Jenin refugee camp. It's beside the refugee camp. So it is inside the clashes, inside the fighting. Every time there is Israeli raid, we are targeted in any kind of forest. Also, we are targeted in any raid.
And right across the street, I understand that this is a police station of the Palestinian Authority. Is that correct?
Yes, it is
Right across the
near
street.
us, the Palestinian police station near the hospital.
Right.
Headquarter, isn't it?
Yes.
Headquarter?
In
Headquarters.
the same quarter.
And it's right across the street, basically.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
So last night, or this morning, I understand there were killings here by Israeli forces. Could you describe what happened to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, about 3 a.m., 3:10 a.m. Some of the young people they were gathered in front of the entrance of the emergency department. They are, according to the people, the witnesses, eyewitnesses, and also to the camera of the hospital. They didn't armed, they didn't fighter, they didn't have any kind of weapons. Suddenly there is some firing started, and they ran away to enter inside the hospital. Some of them they are injured inside the entrance of the hospital. We lost two young people. One of them in his head, about I think is age 34 years old, and the other in the chest is 19 years old. Both they are dead after several minutes of making CPR for them, but because they have a serious injury, they die. There is another four. They have injuries in another part of the bodies, but they are in stable condition.
They're here at the hospital.
Yes, they are in the hospital, and they are in stable condition.
So, just to be clear, these two men who were killed, at the time that they entered the compound, as far as you know, they weren't wounded. They were not wounded at that moment. They were wounded once they entered the compound.
Yes,
Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And this has been confirmed by review of the videotapes, the
Yes,
security.
when we review the videotape, they are inside the building. They was injured.
Is it possible to see this videotape?
We send the videotape to the Ministry of Health, and you can take it from their office.
The Ministry of Health of the
Ramallah.
Palestinian Authority.
Yes,
Ramallah.
Palestinian Authority.
Right. And the bodies of these the deceased, where are they now?
They are now in the one on our hospital and the other in Ibn Sina hospital.
And after they were shot, did Israeli soldiers enter the hospital?
No.
They had no interaction with
No,
the
no.
hospital staff,
No,
as far as you
they
know.
didn't enter the hospital.
And do you
But
know?
They shot them from inside.
No, they shot from a sniper in a building outside the hospital. They are not entered inside the hospital. Some of them, they said that there is a vehicle enter the hospital and they shot the people. But according to the videotape, they most probably from a snipers.
Right. And is this the first time that something of this nature has happened? That people on the first of all, I just want to be clear. When you at the moment that they were shot, were they in the building or were they outside the building but on the hospital compound?
They are outside the building in the front yard of the hospital,
Right.
but inside the wall of the hospital.
Right. So this is the area where there's a memorial to Shireen Abu Akleh, and then there's the roundabout.
We have this square, yes.
Right. And has anything like this happened before?
Yes, before in the last year, there is a young man was in front of the emergency department, also with a group of young people. They shot them in his head. Also, he died immediately.
And I have one final question for you, sir. Have any international organizations, to your knowledge, such as the International Criminal Court or the United Nations, have they requested evidence of these atrocities from the hospital administration? Has there been any kind of an investigation by international organizations?
We send any kind of criminals or kind of what happening inside the hospital. We send to the Ministry of Health, and through it will send it to the any international organization.
Right.
But at morning, the Red Crescent they came to our hospital.
I'm sorry, who came?
The
Red Crescent.
came to the hospital and asked what happening, and we give them what happened.
Recording.
The recording with the Minister of Health, but we said what happened.
But I'm
Inform
spe-
them about what happening.
specifically, I'm interested in knowing whether, to your knowledge, any representative of the International Criminal Court and his prosecutor, Karim Khan, have ever sought evidence from this hospital about the crimes committed here?
Directly, no.
Okay.
He doesn't know even.
Right.
If the PA, he takes all the recording.
Maybe, but directly from our hospital, directly with me or with the other medical staff here.
Right.
No.
No ICC representative has ever
No.
interviewed you or communicated with you
No.
about this? Okay.
But you are across the PA headquarters. So when the Israelis or snipers come and target people inside the hospital and hospital compound, would they interfere, the PA, who
No.
are armed,
No, they will not interfere.
And
to
last,
protect you guys, no?
No.
and actually now I have one more question. Last night after the shooting, did any Palestinian Authority policemen come to the scene to inquire as to what happened?
During any raid, there is no policeman inside the hospital.
But afterwards, were there any?
After that, they will came and ask what happening, take the report of the martyr, the report of the injuries.
Okay.
But at the time of clashes, they didn't came because the situation is will be critical.
Right. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Welcome.
So this is Dimitri Lascaris from Jenin Refugee Camp, the hospital adjacent to the camp. On the morning of March 13th, 2024, we learned this morning that 6 Palestinian men were shot here at the hospital, inside the hospital compound yesterday. 2 of them died. And we just interviewed the administrator of the hospital, and he was kind enough to show us videotape taken by the security cameras inside the hospital entrance. And we're going to show you what we saw. He's hopefully going to send us the videotape, but just in case, we'd like to recount what we just saw on videotape. So we're now at the entrance from the street. And by the way, right across over there is a major, almost military base of the Palestinian Authority. It's a police headquarters, but clearly there is a large presence of Palestinian Authority police right across the street from this hospital. So last night, there was obviously, from the videotape, there was firing going on. A number of Palestinian men, mostly, I think they were all men as far as I could tell, rushed from this area where we're standing into the entrance of the hospital over here. And the videotape that we saw 2 angles, but the one that was most revealing was probably from a security camera that was positioned just inside that door.
Here also, up. There is one here.
Yes. There was one there, and then another on the interior. So the second video, the tape that showed what happened or gave us a clear view of the interior, it showed men running into this entrance. Several of them managed to enter the hospital without any apparent injury. One of them was limping. It looked like he had been shot in the leg. And towards the end of the video, someone comes to this door, a man, his back is turned. He appears to be shot in the chest. He collapses to the ground. He's not moving at all at that point. It seemed like he was killed instantly. And someone came, hospital staff, and picked up his body and began to drag him inside. And when that happened, it was absolutely clear that there was no weapon on him. Certainly not an automatic weapon. It would be very surprised if there was any kind of weapon, even a small arms weapon. And he certainly didn't have anything in his arms, nothing in his hands, nothing lying on the floor around him. And there was a massive pool of blood underneath him. Obviously, I think he was dead the moment he was struck by that bullet. But this video leaves absolutely no ambiguity about this. They shot an unarmed Palestinian man in the back in a hospital. That's what happened, across the street from the headquarters of the Palestinian Authority. So across the street from the desecrated monument to the murdered Palestinian American Al Jazeera journalist Jenin Abu Akleh, murdered last year by an Israeli sniper, there's the cemetery in Jenin refugee camp, which was originally intended for an enlarged theater complex for the camp's residents, and you can see there are freshly dug graves for the two men who were murdered this morning by Israeli forces at the entrance to a hospital on the edge of the camp. And video evidence shows clearly that one of the murdered men was shot in the back as he was running into the hospital trying to escape sniper fire. And when he collapsed, it appeared that he was killed instantly. There was no weapon in his hands, no weapon on the floor underneath him when his body was lifted, and all you could see at that point was a pool of blood. An unequivocal war crime.